learn. And the reason that AIA program exists is because it's continuing education, because architects realize that facade products are going to contain interior and everything else is going to continue to evolve, and everybody's going to continue to refine their processes. And now, even more so as prefabrication and unitization is starting to continue to evolve and continue to mature, that gives you even more reason to engage earlier and earlier with fabricators.
I think the lunch and learns is kind of like the gateway drugs.
Yeah, starts the combo. Right? Yeah, starts the combo.
Here we have two guests eating their breakfast who decided to be together in person on this episode. But on the note you just said, so if you can tell by their background, it's actually not a fake background. What we are looking at is what I think is the ever-evolving Nashville, which is going to be the theme of this podcast. Am I looking at dirty glass, or is that
no? This is the screen.
That's the Meco shade.
Yeah,
that's a Meco shade. We have at least on we're on the top two floors here at the Gulch Crossing, which is kind of the middle of the entire Gulch. We installed Meco shades to cut down on glare. We went aggressive. We've been in this building for 10 years now, but we went aggressive in an open office environment, mostly because when you've been here, Adrian, we like being able to kind of walk around this building and showcase how different everything is, not just downtown, but also in the Gulch and Midtown. So you got a good 360 around here. So,
well, what's good, and I have been in your office, is that I'm sure you bring in clients and you say that one's ours, that one's ours, that one's ours, and Mo hasn't done a single presentation where he hasn't said, look out the window and look at that one and look at that one. So it's kind of a very interactive platform. But actually, on that shading and solar glare topic, Nashville is a unique environment where you do face that issue of having to mitigate solar heat gain. Have you seen in any of the designs anybody take interest? Forget, maybe we could talk about dynamic glass, tintable glass, but even like using precast as shading elements or sun shading. I haven't seen any of that incorporated in any of the designs. So let me ask this: is it a thought, but it's been VE'd out, or it's not even a thought from the beginning?
No, it's a thought, but it doesn't even get to the VE platform a lot of times, because what we've found is the at least here is the major difficulties in cutting down on glare would require really extensive shading devices or thin devices, and
big ones.
Yeah. Like, we're not talking, we've on this building we talked about having 2 or 3 foot brows at 9 feet to cut down on glare, and the solar studies actually told you try 8 feet. 8 feet will get you there. So we had as much horizontal projection as we did vertical, just about. It would get VE'd pretty quickly. What we have found. Now, there are scenarios where we could be very strategic about how we mass a tower and where we know where the solar heat gain is going to be higher, because a lot of what we're doing right now, Adrian, is, as you know, utilizing bonus height criteria that will allow for additional entitlements here, and inevitably that paints you into a lead silver at a minimum, and you have to be really strategic about meeting the energy performance criteria. And it's very simple for everybody to say we want a window everywhere, and we'll figure out kind of how we could back into cutting out some things, but it's not that easy. It's really extensive in terms of how much we're having to spandrel out or block out to meet our criteria.
And so is the basic understanding that mechanical conditioning is just going to be high, and that's just the baseline expectation. Owners who pay for their own utility bills are just going to have to keep that as a line item, and however high it goes is how high it goes.
That's funny. We were just in the break room. We were just having a conversation about what we were going to talk about today. And do you want to roll right into that?
I think so. We do talk about this a lot. At least here, we're in. I told Mo, we're in TVA land. TVA land means we're paying pennies on our energy costs, and part of it is because there's obviously a cultural and historical aspect here at the Tennessee Valley that's providing cheap energy, but nuclear is provided here, so we actually have the avenues to run what I would consider to be environmentally conscientious energy.
Agreed.
So the better question, or the more the many onion layers to this is, what is more conscientious? Is it to build something that is the greatest energy efficient building ever that uses very little HVAC power, whatever it might be? Or do you be more exact about what materials you're actually putting on your building?
Local, right.
Yeah, and local. I mean,
Right.
that's where I'm at. Honestly, that's the allure that I know my company ESA has with Gate.
Yeah.
It's right down the road. We can go see it.
20 minutes.
20 minutes away.
Yeah.
That I don't lose any sleep on that.
Yeah.
What you could lose sleep on is if I'm adding all this insulation, all these panels, and all these additive materials, where's that being sourced from? Is it being petroleum out of Asia and floated on a barge and put on a truck and zipped all the way over to Middle Tennessee? I got to tell you, I don't find the wisdom in the environmentally conscientious elements of that.
Yeah.
So I know that's a long-winded answer, but if you look at a lot of our buildings, we're being more strategic about what isn't on the buildings rather than what we're putting in the building.
And you have the luxury of having lots of local manufacturers that are all of their product is being formed, shaped, produced locally,
Right.
Including Nashville. You've got an IGU that's made here, right?
Yeah, and the truth is you can find a lot of local fabricators in New York, in Florida, in Texas,
Yeah.
and blah blah blah. And it's not, I don't know how much that really is the driving factor. It's a nicety to sit there and have a local guy that's going to be able to service, but in today's world it seems like everything's driven by dollars.
But that's what Lee is saying. That's what Lee is, that his point is that here in Nashville, localized in this market, he has the luxury of being able to source local materials for most of the products that are on the facade. There's metal, there's formed and shaped metal that's local. There's you've got Alexander Metals that does glazing and storefronts that's here, that's local. We're local, we're right down the road. There's
Who's
a
going to
lot
do
of
that building we're
components.
looking at behind you though? That Marriott
JW Marriott
locally.
That was probably,
yeah.
was that J.R. Butler?
No, I'm
That's
saying
a what-
today with this in
Oh,
mind, who's going
today.
to do that
Yeah,
locally?
that's a great segue too, because
Yeah.
this building right here that I'm pointing at, I don't know if we actually have video or whatever it is. That is a straight up window wall system, and that was part of my antagonizing like challenge to both Mo and Adrian is like, hey, you're never going to get anywhere because the contractor is going to price in whatever gives me a window and whatever gets me dried in as quickly as possible. It's a system,
Right.
with a system world.
Yeah.
And
with little people on the facade.
yeah, exactly. And it's always very frustrating. So there's two things going on. One is that price of glass is outpacing the rising price of most everything else. So right now, at least what we're seeing is that glass all of a sudden is expensive again, which kind of makes sense. That's the first thing that's going on. The second thing that's going on is the city of Nashville doesn't want to see any more glass extrusions. Full stop. So you are at the mercy of your extra entitlements from the planning department and the design review committee. So if you trot out a bonus height program building that is all glass, you actually run the risk of just not getting the entitlements. So now that's going to be an extra thing. What they're wanting to see now is facades with depth. And it's an erroneous kind of decision that they say we want to see facade with depth, but as architects, we like seeing facades with depth. We like seeing shadow. We like seeing layers. That's what we want. We don't actually want these glass tombstone extrusions.
Right. Well, that kind of rolled. All right. So when Lee made that point to us, you remember, I mean, Adrian, we were sitting in this room when he made that comment about, hey, look, you're running headlong into window wall world. And that was before the city had made those decisions to shift kind of design. And we went to work trying to figure out what can we offer that's going to have a window wall type look to it, but not be a window wall system. Something that would have more opaque, that would offer, even though you don't really need it, but more.
No, actually, I disagree. I think that is a different. There is a different aesthetic in what you guys created. A and B, it's a different approach. It's kind of engineering to a huge degree. So
Yeah.
I was very impressed because
Yeah.
honestly, I was, like I said, I'm antagonizing you guys, and then you guys just went out and just decided to do it, which was really impressive.
Right. And so also that's to address this another component that you were talking about different components being shipped in from all over, insulation coming from God knows where. That the spray insulation is done on site. So you're taking you're taking more local participation, putting it on the floor and having them spray insulation on the back of our concrete portion. The little bit that's left, that, because the bulk of that system's window anyway.
Yeah.
But
Better, tighter quality control. That's
Yeah.
what you always want to see. And
Yeah.
honestly, that's where a lot of these systems are kind of the drum that they're beating is that you have, really exact dimensioning and everything that you want to see and putting together a building.
Mhm.
But
So if you go, because you have these conversations with the developers, if you say on a dollar per square foot basis, your facade's going to cost, 8% more, but you're going to get 7 more floors because of it, does that all of a sudden perk up their ears?
yes, and you have to explain it to them in those terms. And
Funny.
right, it's about, hey, do you want the extra floors or not? Because I am as an architect, a lot of what we do is mediation, right? It's not just mediation between the contractor and the owner.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's the owner and the city. We just went through a project over in Fourth and Leah that we're working with Pinnacle Hospitality Partners, and that was an MDHA review, right? And
Mhm.
it is going through the bonus height program, and we do have to say, hey, there's a premium to this facade. You're not going to get $75 a foot, full stop. But right, I mean, maybe if we catch a lot of breaks, I get it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
$75. Let's keep our fingers crossed, right?
Yeah.
But expect to have a premium, but you get 8 floors out of it, and that's an easier pill to swallow.
Right. You remember exceptional design? That's, you pair that exceptional design thing that everybody was talking about a few years ago, and you pair that with the shift of the city's mindset towards getting rid of the facades, and that all works together to really honestly in your favor.
Right.
Whether it's with us or whether or not it's with McDougal with
Mhm.
those cool metal
Yeah.
shapes that they do, or anybody else.
Yeah, I have a few questions, and this one actually just came into my mind. It's a little bit of a side tangent. When you're looking at, especially as an architect and early on, and when owners are asking you to give them feedback or price jobs and so forth, does it go through your head like you're playing out the probability or likelihood that this project's actually going to go forward and we should actually chase this versus this is an unknown owner from Austin, they haven't built here before, maybe we should put this one on the side?
Yeah. I don't have a good metric. I have an internal BS meter that I'm always running. And
Getting harder to use it.
It is hard. It is yeah, it is very hard. But yes, I do have some like red flag trigger words, that sometimes kind of gives me like, oh, I'm this is going to require some hand holding, because a lot of times, what I think what I will tell you, one of the red flags is a developer that comes in that already knows exactly what they think they're going to do, and the design process, the city, everything it can be very volatile. You have to give yourself some wider grace, and you have to be able to be a little more malleable. The ones who are not are going to be frustrated, and frankly, you kind of wonder if they're in the right in the right field.
Yeah.
When they're not able to roll with the punches.
Well, that was something that came up yesterday. That when I was across the street Nashville has changed so much since big money rolled into town. And what I mean by that is, there used to be developers that were all local. CD Ragland, GBT, I don't know who else is
Mark Street's one.
Yeah, people that are here, these guys in Gulch.
Mhm.
Now you've got Samara Road that's here from New York. You've got CA South out of Chicago. You've got money from LA. You've got the guys across the street.
Vancouver.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Vancouver. Our buddy Dave. Hey Dave. And also Houston, Hines, they bought all that money or bought all that property behind Bosa's development. You've got Austin that's here. All the major markets are coming in, and they probably have in their mind exactly what they want to do.
That's right.
Because it worked in their city. This is their program. This is what they want to do. And then they roll into town and they smack right into the Nashville brick wall.
Well, so Lee, I don't want to share publicly. I'm sure you're not going to care and will share publicly, but somebody close to you also works in the industry and probably of a firm of a smaller scale. So maybe you could speak about her. Maybe I'm sure you go home and talk about experiences and the conversations on a 40-story tower versus, a 3-story wood frame building are probably very different.
Yes, we do. Adrian, speaking of my better half, Julie DeBoe Davis, she's a partner at EOA Architects. She's been there just about as long as I've been here at ESA. No, we do talk shop. What are our frustrations and what are we running into? I do think what's funny is EOA is very synonymous with doing fantastic design work that I believe comes across a lot of times as maybe more granular, but the fact of the matter is they're doing a lot of big work too. They're doing the entire Legislative Plaza right across from the Capitol. They have been working on the Titan Stadium, so they gotta be super malleable themselves. What we run into is more typology, building typology discussions and differences. When Julie is working on a multifamily project, it's generally, not always, but generally townhomes 5/2 stick built type deal. When I'm working on residential components, it's normally in a stack high rise. So it's
right.
been
So
interesting
she
to
might
see
have
how
a
that.
little bit, in some aspects, a little bit more of a rinse and repeat formula where you're kind of trying to reinvent the vision on every one of these towers.
That's right. So there's definitely some different approaches. I think the challenge that you get into, especially I would say like the Wedgwood Houston is a very good.
It's my favorite neighborhood.
It's your favorite neighborhood. That neighborhood is definitely a microcosm of like what is going well for the neighborhood.
I agree.
And I think what we have to figure out is how can we kind of bottle that, right? There's a lot of different approaches to how do you execute on a concept of a project and how you differentiate yourself. A lot of that is going on in Wedgwood Houston. So if anybody's listening on, how can you weasel into the Nashville market, I would probably tell you that you could be looking at a lot of different ancillary neighborhoods. You might want to start with Wedgwood Houston.
Yeah, and AJ Capital has done a fantastic job of fitting in over there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Their projects have. I drove through there yesterday.
Making meaningful places and
Yeah.
the placemaking there has been fantastic.
That was
so
actually.
Bella, shout out to my stepdaughter Bella, who's in school at UF in her last year of architecture. I've learned so much about what it is that he does through my daughter or stepdaughter. She's and it's all about visiting the site, visiting the neighborhood, understanding and trying to program your building to fit into where the site, and giving a lot of consideration about materials that are around. And I knew a little bit about that before, just because of I've been in a lot of offices, but sitting alongside her when she's working from home, and I'm trying to ride along with her as she's made it through school so I can learn more. And I really, really have come to appreciate the efforts that design teams put into making sure that their building doesn't stand out on a site, that it blends into the fabric of the neighborhood and it makes sense, instead of mowing everything down and building a whole new neighborhood because it fits your program.
Well, that's what I wanted the theme of the episode to be, and to title it, hint, hint, Abby, reshaping Nashville. So yeah. I remember, and I don't want to, everybody's always like, oh, give me the topics, let me prepare for the podcast. And I don't like that. I kind of like asking on the whim questions and hearing real feedback. I don't like staged answers, but
answers. Yeah,
we've had this discussion before, so we'll get into and evolve
Well,
into
hang on, wait a
today.
minute.
But
Just hang on. I got reshaping Nashville is kind of, that's a misnomer in a way. It's more evolution of Nashville. It's not you're trying, the city is not, that's the whole point, is the city is not wanting to change its identity. They don't want to change their identity. The city doesn't, and none of the people that are here really want to change the fabric of Nashville. Even like what we were just talking about having design fit into the neighborhood. Dave and the 1401 job across the way, the dairy site was there, and Hastings took great pains, and Dave spent a fair amount more money to make sure that the silos that were on that site were represented in the design. That they put a lot of consideration towards making sure that the building that they put in that replaced the building that was there replicated the same exact radius of the silos that were on that site. And they used the same colors. They did everything they could to give a nod to the existing site and existing building through the design process.
To the fenestration, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
well, and I
so-
think that's a more advanced way of thinking. And I'm a bit of a Neanderthal in digesting the architecture and how it surrounds in the landscape. But it's kind of like Domino fitting in with the original sugar factory.
Exactly.
Clarkson's supposed to replicate all of that, the Palisades hills and peaks over the water in New Jersey. But Lee, like looking 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because I wasn't in the area, I want you to talk a little bit about the history then, and like before you started seeing all these window wall, curtain wall, high rises popping up. You've spoken about this a couple of years ago when we were in your office, like how the cityscape wasn't prepared for high rise buildings and the sewer system and all that stuff. So can you talk a little bit about like lessons learned, and then today, we'll get to today after, but start on that.
Well, I tell people, and I don't have any data to actually support this, but I just feel in my heart of hearts that we executed this downtown code, which is a form-based zoning, blanket over all of downtown, and not having any idea what was going to happen. I don't think we actually had a good handle on what the appetite could be, right? Because at that time, we talked about it just a little bit, 15 years ago, we knew when the market was going to slow, when the Nashville banks stopped lending. Well, now we got stuff from Vancouver, stuff from New York, stuff, from Teachers Union in Canada. We got everything out there pouring into Nashville. So there's a lot more resources, a lot more volatility.
International is next.
Absolutely. International is here.
Yeah.
So now that we have to fold that in, what happened was we all of a sudden just came out of the recession, the 2008 recession. We had an enormous convention center. We had no hotel. We had no infrastructure kind of in place to really support that. And all of a sudden, we just like flipped a switch and said, "Hey, we're open for business." And it was it was mass chaos. And I've talked about being a frog in boiling water here, in that we've been honestly, ESA, we've been here for 60 some odd years, but 15 years ago, we weren't really doing a lot of Nashville work. We were doing some
medical. We did
a lot of medical. We still do a lot of medical work
all over the place.
And that really was kind of defining who we were 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But right now it's, hey, somebody's coming into town, and we're going to be one of the first calls because we're a big company. We're able to throw a lot of people at a project to get something done. And there's some satisfaction, some comfort in that. But here, I've talked about being a frog in boiling water. You kind of just look around and you're like, holy smokes. Everything, let's see. Everything from this building over was not there when we moved into this building 10 years ago. And that is a little bit of an alarming thing for people to say, wait, what was Nashville before all this? And
that is a good term. Reshaping the skyline of Nashville is probably a good way to look at this. It's not necessarily reshaping the feel of the neighborhood or the feel of the city, but it is changing the skyline a lot.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many topics to go into, and we'll try to bring it back to the facade and so forth. But like architects beyond just principals and leaders that might have been drawn in from other architecture firms, I don't want to name names, but ones that are used to building in Chicago and New York and San Francisco and then coming into Nashville, but you don't necessarily have the staff at the lower level to execute on the work who understand all the principles of high-rise construction and vertically exhausting versus, utilizing PTAX or all that mechanical duct work, and how to make the skin go up as quickly as possible, and how to staff your architecture firm or GC and so forth to manage all of that. So it kind of makes sense why curtain wall and window wall was the answer for many years.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
think
the GCs weren't ready.
I don't think the GCs
The-
were,
yeah,
I don't
the
think the
GCs weren't.
GCs were quite ready. I mean, they might be able to do 1 or 2 projects, but
Yeah.
when you're expected to do it across all of a sudden 5 or 6, I mean,
Right.
that's
It was
I
a
mean,
lot to swallow
Yeah.
for the staff. You got to think about these guys have been that the same thing that happened to him that he was referencing to also happened to all the general contractors that were here, and they were struggling with staffing, and they needed products that were a little easier and more repeatable,
repeatable.
which
Absolutely.
is why the skyline is kind of repeated.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of frustration. It's like another glass tower. And I was like, well, if we could be more purposeful, we'd have a little more time and a little more runway. I think you'll start to see that change. And I believe we're seeing it right now. We're going to start turning that corner.
Yeah, everything everything that I'm looking at right now that's in SDs, because there's a ton.
Yeah.
There's been a 5-year run of a lot of drawings. There are a ton more drawings than there are buildings.
Right.
And so there's projects that are in 100% DD phase right now that have been in 100% DD phase for 2 years, waiting. And so that it's building, and these projects that are coming are not all window wall. They're not all glass towers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that's in the backlog, so to speak, that are exceptional design.
Every tower that we have in schematics right now,
It's cool stuff.
yeah, it's great stuff. We're super excited about it, but I will say none of them are repeatable window wall.
Right.
And
I'm gonna make fun of Mo on this really quickly, but even if we never build another building together, one of the most fruitful, enjoyable aspects of my career has been changing some of these designs and executing on them and building them, especially in Nashville. But I suffered from believing everything Mo told me for many years. So he said, "Yeah, we're going to build that tower over by the gym where they're renovating it, and this one's going, and this one's about to go." And so the amount of drawings, and I fell for thinking like we're going to need to build a new factory with everything that's happening in Nashville. So yeah, I'll let you get back to it.
And then escalation wars happened.
Yep.
You had escalation wars that occurred. You had banks pump the brakes. You had all these other things. So there's a lot of pent up capacity that is like right on the breaking point. And there's a series of events that are going to happen over the next 5 years. There's a lot of different things that are going to happen in Nashville that is going to keep driving these projects. So even though they there's been a little bit of a pause, and there's a little talk, there's even online, there's a little bit of chatter about how Nashville is slowing down. And it did. But that doesn't mean that it stopped. And I think
it
it's
also comes in cycles.
It's going to come right back up again.
When multifamily units come online, that's, I don't know, what are you going to say, 8 years from initial envisioning, or 4 years from breaking ground. So it's not like,
Right.
Oh, there's cranes, we see all these cranes, and all of a sudden these units are ready to go. So Dave's property over the water, it's still not going to be ready with units for years from now, or maybe a couple of years. So Lee, I'm a New Yorker, and we saw in COVID a mass exodus into places like Florida and Texas, maybe for the space, maybe for the weather, maybe tax benefits, politics, whatever was driving that. Do you, despite the current need and units coming online, do you still see a major draw for people to come to Nashville from other areas?
There's still that draw. It's the allure that is worn off is that you're not discovering Nashville. The developers that came here a number of years ago, they all felt that they were trailblazing, and early on it. But you got to understand, like, we as a city, we've broken through the surface, but we still got a long way to go. Oracle is a big company. It's a big company. We haven't actually done anything on the East Bank other than almost finish a NFL stadium.
Yeah, getting there.
We haven't done anything else. There's an entire, it's
a
Gulch,
mini city.
It's a Gulch 2.0, or hell, it's almost a downtown. That is waiting for us over there, and
it's coming.
I do see that we're finally seeing some absorption. not just in the apartments, but also in office. Office has been the biggest problem, is that a lot of people have relocated here and realized that, well, I can actually relocate here, have relatively cheap office, and I'm not paying taxes. So checking a lot of boxes. Those are still boxes that can be checked right now. So I imagine that we're still going to keep drawing from that. What I would also predict is that there's probably going to be some growth in some ancillary markets in some of these, no income state tax areas. So
Yeah.
you'll start seeing the Jacksonvilles, the Knoxvilles, those are the types of cities that I think are going to have the allure of, hey, I'm in on the ground here. And we'll start seeing those start pick up some steam. Like Nashville's not going away.
No.
I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So
The Oracle deal, the number of jobs that are going to come along with that over the, I can't remember what he said, 2032 or something like that. Something like that. It's like 8,000 jobs.
it's a lot of jobs.
It's a lot. That's a lot of people. There are a lot of people from Oracle that are already here, but it's a fraction of what is to come. And you've got to consider that when that many people come just for one business, you got to think about all the other businesses that are going to come and support all of those jobs. So it's just like if you think about when an automotive plant goes into a market. I can remember when Honda moved to Lincoln, Alabama. That exploded that area. You had ZF Axle Systems move in from Germany, and they built a brand new facility to support Mercedes that was outside of Tuscaloosa. When you have a big business like that come to a town, it has rippling effects that are very, very wide because there's so many other businesses that will end up supporting that massive business, and that's going to continue to drive growth.
Yep.
And you'll see. I think there's other businesses that are going to get on that bandwagon.
We actually see that with even Amazon.
Good point.
There's a lot of things that decided, well, we're gonna hang around the area, and I believe that's where actually Oracle is like right now over in the capital. Yeah, once we start seeing that start to populate, then we're gonna see a whole new slew of new development and redevelopment. You gotta remember that there's a lot of capital expenditures that are going to come into all these hotels. So it should be interesting.
And the good thing that I would have to say about, you mentioned earlier in the conversation about architects that were big architects coming in from out of town. You've got Foster working on Oracle, but they're tied to the hip to Hastings because they need local representation. And I'm sure you guys have done. Have you guys done that?
Yeah,
where you have somebody
absolutely.
like
we were working on a couple of projects that have out of town
design
architect,
architect,
and we're playing AOR. There's a lot of that going on, and I think
they got to do that. They have to do that in order to be able to understand how to build in the city.
Correct. A lot of them are trying to figure it out. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
I won't get into specifics, but we're like, well, yeah, I understand how you kind of connected those dots, with pitching to the city, but they're going to see right through that. It's been fun to see that, but I do think that that's why it's hard in this town in particular for an architecture, like a big name architecture firm, to like really relocate and like get grab teeth here. I think Gensler's trying, they're trying to get through it.
By hiring local architects.
They just hire local architects,
but it's still, they're still struggling.
It's hard. We do have some legacy kind of good old boy network, and sometimes that's great, sometimes a pain in the ass.
And then sometimes the good old boy network comes with a negative connotation because it just, and in some ways, yes, there is a negative connotation to good old boy network, but in Nashville, when you say that, it doesn't hurt my feelings, and I don't look at it as and not because I'm a good old boy, because I am not. I don't play. Because you
get that in Alabama, you get that in Florida. You're used to it.
I know.
I'm the New Yorker that lies, and he's going to try to steal from you, and we all have these stereotypes.
But what I'd say, it's in Nashville, they are trying to protect their local economy. And when you say good old boy network, it's not necessarily bad in that respect. And I don't mean like deals under the table and all that kind of stuff. That's not really that's not that side of the good old boy network. It's more, let's take care of each other. Let's make sure to build local. Let's use local talent. Let's make sure to keep the local economy thriving. And let's not have materials shipped in from all over the United States. Let's don't have 100% of the design come out of New York or Chicago or Los Angeles. Let's try and maintain our local presence so that we can hold on to the local flair of Nashville. And you can't do that from 1,000 miles away. You've got to have people that understand the city, that understand the code, understand what the city wants from the designers, and you got to have somebody like Lee to do that. Really,
It's about, I think they simplify it into accountability. If
Yeah.
we're trying to be creative, we're trying to think outside the box, we're trying to do something that's maybe a little bit different and unexpected. Well, I think they could, the city, the planning department, and dot whoever it might be, they might have some more comfort in someone like Lee Davis, because we know he lives in Davidson County. Yeah, they probably know exactly what house I live in, but so I'm not going to get very far.
How many years have you worked in the city as an architect? And
Well,
where did you graduate?
I graduated from Tennessee Knoxville, go Vols. And I've worked here as a Davidson County resident for 21 years, and I would say that I've worked for 15 years doing Nashville work. So it's a long time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of legwork to be able to build that trust. And I think that's really what I'm talking about when somebody says, well, I'm going to come in, I'm going to do the project that I, executed out in LA, and we're going to do it here in Nashville. Well, you can't really do that. Like, I mean, you can. I think you'll have a lot of heartache and consternation by doing that. You really do need to purpose build it for the project that's in front of you and the people that are in front of you. And
I can tell you, Adrian, when we first got here, 2021, I can remember we were trying to make a lot of noise, and we did, and we got some attention, and I got a lot of phone calls and emails from teams that were trying to build in Nashville using out-of-town architects. And all of those really, really big projects that we looked at way back when, not a single one of them have been realized. Not one. We lost your audio.
Yeah, there, he admits it. So hold on, let's get a little, I love rambling with you guys. Let's get a little refocused. Lee, so now that we're in this stage where there's I want to say higher level of sophistication, but the next stage of architecture where high-rise construction is normal, you're introducing different materiality, more advanced methods and means of building. What is the most effective way to educate your younger staff or encourage them to learn more in terms of how to build, how to design? In terms of manufacturers and contractors, some people love lunch and learns. A lot of people say it's kind of a dead end, and that side of the box lunch and learns don't work anymore. But in terms of encouraging them to interact with contractors, suppliers, manufacturers, learn more, how can they get out there and figure out, how to build with precast, how to utilize thin brick in their projects, how to utilize terracotta, just different ways of doing things?
I think people around here will tell you that a lot of times it's almost a words of encouragement, but there's actually nothing magic about what we're doing. Meaning there's not some sort of unbelievable like machine that's over at Gate Precast that is just building all these panels for us and that are supporting themselves structurally. You have to understand what the material is. So I will always jump at the opportunity to send some of our younger staff to Ashland City.
Love plant tours.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You
Great.
learn so much because every time someone leaves Gate or like McDougal or something like that, they're like, oh my gosh, now I understand.
Yeah.
Because actually understanding what those materials are and how they put them together simplifies your understanding of the detailing process, right? So that's always my first thing. We do have a lot of very knowledgeable people here at ESA that I'm constantly telling the younger staff, you need to go talk to Jordan Fay, you need to go talk to Jeremy Franchini and David Jaffe. We have those envelope experts. We do. And that's from years and years and years of doing it, right? But ultimately there's nothing super magical we have to be purposeful about what it is that we're putting in a, say, a wall section and why we're putting it there. Understanding all those things and what the vapor barrier is doing, what the insulation is doing in this climate for this part of this tower, in this direction. That's always my encouragement, is make sure you understand what it is that you are drawing. And if you don't, then you need to ask, or you need to figure it out.
And I will dovetail into that. What I will add to that is, since 2008, 9, 10, you had a shift. You had lots of different parametric modeling softwares hit the market. Revit really has matured over since that time frame, and that product and the way of designing has changed a lot of manufacturers that are fabricating product. Their processes are changing, and that's the plant tours, and their guys have spent a lot of time investing in understanding how products are changing. You guys are doing a lot more digging in and contact with the fabricators directly to understand what their newest capabilities are, and whether or not it's metal or precast or any other product. I don't know what else you guys are working on, but there's, the products are coming internationally. That happened after 2008. There's just a lot more products that are hitting the market, and I think the lunch and learn programs are still very vital. I think that there's probably a lot of stuff that comes in that everybody's like, but there's still, there's the lunch and learn. And the reason that AIA program exists is because it's continuing education, because architects realize that facade products are going to contain, interior and everything else is going to continue to evolve, and everybody's going to continue to refine their processes. And now, even more so, as prefabrication and unitization is starting to continue to evolve and continue to mature, that gives you even more reason to engage earlier and earlier with fabricators.
I think the lunch and learns is kind of like the gateway drugs.
Yeah, starts the combo. Right? Yeah, starts the combo.
How do you? It's like, well, I'm not going to get everything out of this, but the more that you ask, the more that you understand, the more likely it is for you to actually execute on that product. I will tell you that. So when I first met Adrian and Mo, they were kind of furrowing their brow in my general direction because of my archaic understanding of precast. And by the way, I still understand there's some very practical uses for for dumb precast, right?
For traditional
stuff. And we were able to leverage that over at 1111 Church.
And it won an award.
It won an award. With Title Real Estate Partners over there.
Yeah.
But I believe that it was because of our understanding of what is that panel doing for us. And it's doing a lot of things other than just covering up slab edges. It is the vehicle impact. It is actually an aesthetic.
Street engagement.
It is absolutely tying into lower church and upper church. It's a very important part of understanding that. But the reason I believe that got done is that we detailed and understood where all those clips were, all the size of those panels, and it wasn't exactly like we presented these exact panels over to Gate and said, make it just like this, and they're like, yeah, good try, but it's going to be slightly different. But at that point, we had kind of painted the contractor Yates. They were like, well, how are we going to do this if it's not precast? It has to be. So it ends up finding its way on jobs that way, a little bit easier. Yeah.
Oh, I had a good question, and now listening to you guys, I lost it.
No, that's because we were talking too much. Sorry.
No. It was good. Yeah, and I think, yes, encouraging them. That's it. So you use the word purposeful, and I like to use intentional design, but purposeful design. And I think what you said, it's not rocket science. A lot of what we do in existing building landscape and new construction works, and it works well when factoring in operational carbon, embodied carbon, and efficiency of building, and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know how much of a post-mortem exercise is done within all firms across the board, owners, general contractors, architects, and subs, to say, what did we do here? What can we extract? What worked? What didn't work? And how do we apply it to the next job? Because I'm sure you'll admit we continue to see the same mistakes made over and over again.
You want to feel that?
Did you do it?
Good. Well, I will say that oftentimes in our industry that is overlooked. You kind of want to be done with the job and dust your hands of it. I think more times than not, we do an okay job of revisiting. The postmortem part of our finished designs is more about learning what we did really, really well. And when we know something has worked extraordinarily well, we're going to try to keep pushing on that to say, well, how far can we take this?
Yeah.
Much to your point, though, I don't think there's enough done about, well, what doesn't work? Like, what caused, a bad thermal break, or leaks and parapet conditions, whatever it might be. I don't think there's enough of that investigated.
And I will add to that and say that as you're posing this question, I'm sitting here thinking in my head, why are we as fabricators, and I don't mean just Gate, I mean all over the United States, why are fabricators not doing more post-mortem work with design teams so that we can better understand how can we better execute your design? How can we do a much better job? Go to the job site, walk around, look at panel joints, understand how panels come together and what would be a better way to transition between panels. Is it possible for us to shiplap a joint on something? And maybe if you're trying to make a joint go away on the face of a facade, how do we do that? How can we? Because I will say the very best projects that we do are jobs where we are pushed by a designer like Lee, who has it in his mind exactly how he wants his design to go. And we don't, if we were doing more postmortems and we were exercising that on the back end of projects, it would give us time in the shorter runways that we have on the next one to be able to adapt.
Yeah.
If we did have longer runways and we did have long design runways where we were engaged during SDs, and it's just rare that we were able to work together on a design from concept all the way through. We've had a few opportunities where we've been able to do that and we were able to polish the design and get it perfect, but that's the rarity. Most of the time, the drawings are happening in a microcosm and you've got the GC that's involved saying, they're interrupting that design process. And, maybe we should be spending more time on the back end of designs because of that shorter runway on the front end.
Even when we structure a fee, we have SD, DD, CD, bidding, CA. There's nothing to kind of, put together our time to like go back and go revisit that. So fallacy maybe.
Well, to wrap it up, I'm going to give Lee and you a chance to share, and maybe you can't share, but what project in your horizon is closest to breaking ground that you're most excited about?
Well, let's see. I would say that right now we're still very excited about all of our hospitality work that's going on right now.
Yeah.
There's just not a huge abundance of high-rise hospitality going on right now. We're about to wrap up into this year the Hilton Motto. It's a very skinny micro hotel that's
cool.
downtown. It's
very
very interesting project with Mortensen. We've broken ground on the Pendry. I think we bottomed out there, and we're going to start going vertical at the Pendry.
And we tried to make that work. I worked with Eric trying to figure out a way.
Eric, and Ryan Terrell.
That's right.
And Trip Parker.
And it's a cool project. Very cool project.
Doing their best to tackle that project. It's we're very excited about that. We've also broken ground on a dual stack Marriott over there on Grundy Street. Which we're very excited about.
Which is where that mock-up came from.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the same group, Title Real Estate Partners, is looking to break ground shortly on the addition, the residences and hotel, the Marriott Hotel, the Ian Schrager brand, the Addition Hotel. We went and toured the Tampa Edition last week. We've a lot of things that we learned there, but I think right now, at least in Nashville, just to kind of maybe keep it within the same thematics here, we're very excited about how much hospitality high-rise work that we have. We feel very, very fortunate, and there's still some more to come that we can't talk about yet.
Yeah.
Well, instead of staying at the Super 8 on the freeway, Mo, maybe next time I'll stay at their micro hotel and see how nice this is. But
they have like very, very nice connecting rooms. Y'all can just like get a suite of 6 together and open up all the doors.
Hallway. Well, thank you guys for coming on. This was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Adrian.
All right. Talk soon.
Yeah.